Hey everyone, Sheila here from Life for Pets. So as promised, this is going to be Belfin's story and going through just everything that happened to him and how we almost got to the point that we did actually talk about euthanizing him. So I'm going to start at the very beginning of when we first got him and just what a pitiful little guy he was. So we got him the beginning of June in 2016, and as you saw from that photograph there, he was not in good condition. We did our best with him in that we would obviously feed him up. We did a lot of water changes. He was in a very large tank. He was in a 55-gallon tank. And in no time at all, he did start turning into this absolutely gorgeous fish. And if you haven't seen the previous video we did on him of the drastic colour change, believe me, this is the same fish. We get a lot of hate and a lot of comments stating that this is not the same fish and that we've swapped the fish out. And all I can say is we haven't done that. This is the same fish all the way through this video and in all the videos that you've seen. Okay, so rant over back to the story. So as you can see, he was doing really well. He was in a 55-gallon tank. We were doing a lot of water changes on that tank. At the time, we were predominantly feeding things like peas, the Rapashi gel food, a lot of bloodworms and brine shrimp. I would say that that probably made up the majority of his diet. As time went on, we did start to notice that he was having some issues swimming, and he would spend a lot of the time sort of just floating on the top of the tank. He was also absolutely terrified of the camera. He was extremely skittish, and it was becoming more and more evident he was extremely unhappy. We then went through a really bad spell with him where he would literally do nothing but sit with his head in the corner floating, and he would either be on his side, sometimes he would be completely upside down, and other times he would just be sort of floating at the top, but he wasn't able to swim down. Now unfortunately I didn't get a great deal of footage of all this, but I did get some footage and I'm going to insert it about here. And as you can see, this is what he would do. The tail would be just extremely sort of drop down, and very often, like I say, he'd actually be on his side. He wouldn't even be as he is now. He would be on his side or he would be upside down. He didn't seem to have any control whatsoever. This started going on for long periods of time. Initially when it first started, it was probably just for maybe a few hours, and then it was maybe a day or two, and then it went on and on after that. And we tried changing the food up, we tried the fasting, we tried the peas, we tried adding broccoli. I do actually still to this day feed him broccoli, and we tried a lot of different things, but nothing seemed to make a difference. While all this was going on, we had already started talking about sort of downsizing on our tanks at this point, because I was having a lot of health issues and staying on top of them was going to be very, very difficult. But the problem we had was, whilst we didn't want to rehome any of the fish, the one thing that we all agreed on was that there was absolutely no way we could rehome Belfin. People wouldn't understand the issues he had, and we were starting to think that maybe he was so miserable and he just had no zeal for life whatsoever, and so things were getting really, really bad. And so we did start to talk about euthanizing him, and that was just heartbreaking because, you know, he was such a character, and at the end of the day he was part of our family. So it was a very difficult conversation to have. So after discussing it, we decided that we would wait a few days and sort of think it over. It wasn't a decision that we wanted to rush into. Well, lo and behold, the next day he was swimming around as normal again, and this was on the back of a spell of probably about a week where he didn't eat very much and he didn't swim virtually not at all. And so we were really shocked that the very next day he was like I'm alive, I want to be alive, and please give me a chance. That's sort of what we felt he was saying. So during all this time, as I said, we were thinking about having to rehome the goldfish, and so we did decide to go ahead and rehome the others that we had. However, we decided obviously we were going to keep Belfin, but we also knew that we did need to downsize the tanks. And so what we did was we put him in a 10-gallon tank, and initially it was only supposed to be for a very short period of time whilst we figured out sort of all the tanks that we had and moved fish around. But to our amazement, him being in that tank, he was suddenly swimming normally. He was so happy. He wanted to be on camera. It was just like a night and day experience. And to this day, we're still not fully sure. We have our theories on why it made such a difference, because it was almost instant. I would say within a week, maybe 2 weeks of him being in there, all the swimming issues had stopped completely. Now, we did make sure that we gave him a 100%, I want to say healthy diet. His diet was healthy anyway, but we were very, very particular with his diet. We did near enough exclusively feed the Repashy gel food and also like peas and broccoli. I did stop feeding the bloodworm, and I will say to this day, it's very rare we give him any, maybe an occasional like worm or two, because we did find that when he was having that it did make him an awful lot worse. The other thing we found that also helped was to, I want to say, keep him on the thinner side. Now, goldfish are usually very big and very round, and one of the things that we do get said a lot about Belfin is that he does look thin. And to me personally, I don't think he looks majorly thin, but he's definitely not as big and as round as you see goldfish. And we found that the more we fed to get this big round appearance, that would make him even worse. So I do feel now that we've found a happy medium for him, but we did keep him in that 10-gallon tank. And I also think as well that the water pressure played a big part, because in the 55-gallon, it was rare he could even get to the bottom to actually pick up any food or anything like that. And so in the 10-gallon, obviously it's very shallow, and so there's nowhere near as much water pressure. And so we found that he was constantly on the bottom and digging in the substrate, and this made a big difference. Now, we did know that we couldn't keep him in a 10-gallon his whole life. While he was in the 10-gallon, he was about 4.5 inches. And obviously, that is a very small tank for such a large fish. So we knew that we had to do another size tank, and we decided on the 20-gallon long solely because it was still a very shallow tank. In fact, it's actually the same depth as a 10-gallon tank. And so that was why we went with the 20-gallon long, because we knew the depth was great for him, and the long obviously gave him a bit more length. Now, ideally, I would love to be able to give him maybe a 33-gallon long where he's got even more space. However, right now that's just not possible, and in fact I don't think I've ever seen a 33-gallon long by where I live. But he's very, very happy in what he's in. I would love to give him more space, but right now that's just not an option. However, he is so personable. We do make sure now that he is an only goldfish that he gets a lot of attention. He is in a part of the house that there's just constantly things going on, traffic backwards and forwards. He gets so much attention, it's just unbelievable, to the point that now he has become our channel icon and everybody absolutely adores him. And he is such a character. He is no longer camera shy, he is now the camera hog. He just has to be in the videos, and it's just amazing that we went from the possibility of euthanizing him to he is now this vibrant fish. and I do think that putting him in that 10-gallon tank obviously saved his life. Well, it did, there's no question about that. And to this day he does still have a very occasional issue where he doesn't swim very well, but I would say that 90% of his time, if not more than that, he is absolutely 100% healthy. And to bring you completely up to date with him, he is now 3.5 years old, and he comes in at around 6 inches in length. So he has grown even more since having been in that 10-gallon and then moving to the 20-gallon long. Now we do have to do a lot of water changes on this tank to keep the parameters good for him, and that's just what we do with all our fish anyway, but with him we are very particular about it, and I am still very, very particular about his diet. It does predominantly consist of the Repashy gel food, broccoli, peas and brine shrimp. That's about all he gets at this point, and that is what is keeping him nice and healthy. Alright guys, thanks for watching, thanks for listening to a Belfin story. If you would like to see more videos like this, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell as well. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.